Thanks for fixing it non-stop for 3 months. I'm going to wire you a penny for the repairs." With a grin on his face, that's what Bob said to me, and I was completely baffled, tilting my head. "Huh? I didn't fix anything though? No way, you've been doing nothing for 3 months. I'll tell the boss it's all fixed up." Saying that, Bob went off somewhere. Everything Bob said was wrong, but I couldn't be bothered to correct him. I let out a small sigh and headed to the CO's office. The day after I went to Bob's company, I was working at my own office, but Bob kept calling non-stop since morning. I've got nothing special to talk about with him, so I've been having folks tell him I'm out, but my team seems pretty fed up with the phone ringing every 10 minutes. The calls stopped around 3 p.m., I reckon. The ringing that had been going all day suddenly stopped. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Tom mumbled. I was just relieved the phone finally stopped, but I didn't pay much mind to Tom's words at the time. Later on though, Tom's bad feeling would turn out to be spot on. "My name's Jack. I'm a 46-year-old engineer. The main machines our company makes are oil drilling rigs. Oil drilling rigs are, as the name suggests, machines for drilling underground for oil, and they cost a fortune to make. There are onshore and offshore types, and our company makes both. Onshore oil rigs are relatively easy to set up and operate, but offshore ones are on a whole different level and much trickier to handle. It's famous in this industry that a well-known foreign company spent $1.12 billion to make a deep-sea oil drilling rig. Our company only makes one type of offshore oil drilling rig, but it cost a ton to develop, and folks said if it didn't work out, our company would go bankrupt. The one who insisted on making this rig, despite all the risks, was our CO, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson is a famous engineer in this industry. He's won all sorts of prestigious awards, and there's no end to the engineers who want to work under the world-famous Mr. Johnson. I'm one of them. I joined this company mid-career when I was 35. Actually, I tried to join right out of college, but failed the hiring test. So I joined my second-choice company. But while working there, I just kept wanting to work for Mr. Johnson's company more and more. When I was 35, I got a chance to meet Mr. Johnson at a conference, and when I told him how passionate I was, he said, "Well, why don't you come work for us then?" The shock I felt then was incredible. I was so excited, I forgot to breathe, nearly passed out from lack of oxygen. You might think I'm exaggerating, but for me, it was like my first love coming to me years later. Something I thought had a 0% chance of happening. After that, I finally got to work for Mr. Johnson's company, and I've been working my tail off ever since. The offshore oil drilling rig we finished a few years back is now our company's main product. It's like our company's calling card. When you think of us, you think of this rig. With big machines like this, it is not over once they're installed. They need regular checkups a few times a year and repairs when they break down. My job is this kind of maintenance. We've got clients overseas too, so I travel abroad a lot. Even so, it's rewarding work that I'm truly proud of. "Jack, you've got a call from Bob," my colleague Tom called out to me. Tom's famous for machine gunning his passion for this company in his final interview and getting hired on the spot by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson told me with a laugh, "We're getting a kid just like you, Jack." When he joined, it was just like that. Tom talked excitedly about how working here had always been his dream, his eyes shining. Since I joined this company with the same feelings, I've got a soft spot for Tom compared to other juniors. I took over the call from Tom, and a deflated voice came through the receiver. "Hey, the rig's acting up again. Can you come right away?" The person on the phone was Bob, an employee of a construction company. Bob's company also uses our drilling equipment. "I see. Could you tell me how it's malfunctioning?" "What? You should see for yourself. I'm no expert, so how would I know?" Even without seeing his face, I could tell Bob was sighing with annoyance. Whether it's a malfunction or a user error, knowing how it's acting up changes our preparation. "Have you tried restarting it? Try turning it off and on again. Stop yapping and get over here. Within 30 minutes. Got it?" Bob yelled and then slammed the phone down with a loud bang. I sighed and put down the receiver. Is he saying it's acting up again? Tom asked with a frown, watching me. Seems so. Didn't Bob call several times last month saying the equipment was malfunctioning? I nodded at Tom's annoyed words. Tom was right. I had gone to Bob's company 3 times last month. He always calls saying it's malfunctioning or broken. If it breaks down this often, there might be a problem with our equipment. But we don't get calls like this from any other company besides Bob's. We do frequent regular inspections and sometimes find wear and tear that users can't detect, but Bob's the only one who calls saying it's not working right. The troublesome part is that it's always actually broken. It took a week to fix it last time, didn't it? I nodded wearily at Tom's words. Our equipment is precise machinery, but it's not normal for it to break this often. We thoroughly investigated whether there was a problem with the equipment itself that required replacement, but found nothing wrong. In other words, Bob's company is simply using it too roughly. Do you think they understand how expensive this equipment is? I'm sure they do, but there's no doubt they're not using it properly. I happened to see Bob using it the other day, and his procedure was a mess. It made me nervous. Tom made a disgusted face at my words, saying, "Wow, imagine a 1-year-old touching a laptop. That's how Bob uses it." It was so dangerous. I felt my heart stop when I saw him recklessly hitting parts that shouldn't be touched. Anyway, I'm heading out. He told me to come within 30 minutes. Come on, it takes at least an hour to get there, no matter how much you rush. Tom sighed in exasperation. Bob is 49, older than me, but apparently joined the company last year as a mid-career hire. It seems he's the CEO's cousin and got in through connections, so the other employees can't complain. In any case, if they say it's malfunctioning, I have to go fix it. I hurriedly prepared and headed to Bob's company. When I arrived at Bob's company, it was more chaotic than I expected. Mr. Davis, the department head in charge of using the drilling equipment, came running to me almost in tears as soon as he saw me. "Jack, I'm so sorry to trouble you again. We were supposed to start drilling today, but this morning Bob said it's not working again. This company drills for oil in the United States and is quite well known there. Mr. Davis's company manages one of these oil fields. We've never had equipment break down this frequently before, so it's a bit odd. We're considering replacement as an option, but that would involve procedures to purchase new equipment, which would be quite expensive again." Mr. Davis's face turned pale at my words. He probably remembered how much this equipment cost. "We don't have the budget to install new equipment. It cost $198 million after all," Mr. Davis said with a trembling voice, and I nodded with a wry smile. "Buying new equipment is too unrealistic. I'll take a look right away. It's best if we can repair it. Of course, offshore oil drilling equipment is out at sea. The operation is done remotely from land, so I went to check the control unit. However, as soon as I checked the equipment, I realized this breakdown wouldn't be fixed overnight. All the readings were off, and of course, the main unit wouldn't move at all. This was the first time I'd seen something like this, so I was stunned speechless. "Hey, you made it within 30 minutes, huh?" It was Bob who spoke to me. "Fix it quick. I'm the one who gets yelled at when the work can't start." He said this with a laugh, but I didn't find it funny at all. This wasn't just a matter of fixing it quickly, we didn't even know if it could be fixed. "When was this equipment last used?" "Huh? Well, we haven't really used it." There was something off about Bob's way of speaking. I felt like he was hiding something. "I think we'll need to form a repair team and make a long-term plan to fix this equipment. It's not moving at all, and I've never seen it in this state before." To be honest, I was at a loss too. There was no guarantee this completely unresponsive equipment could be fixed, and with no precedent, we didn't know how to repair it. I thought I'd have to take this case back and consult with Mr. Johnson. "What do you mean long-term fix? Fix it right now. I told you we can't start today's work if this doesn't move." Bob yelled and grabbed me by the collar. I couldn't understand why he would act like this. The cause of the equipment's malfunction was probably Bob. He must have misused it somehow. If that's why today's work can't start, couldn't he ask more apologetically? At the very least, grabbing someone's collar and yelling doesn't seem like the right approach. I'll take it back to the company and consult with the CEO, but I don't think it's something that can be fixed in a few days. Replacement might be a possibility. What? Fix it today. Do you know how much damage we'll suffer if our work is delayed? It's your fault for making such fragile equipment. Pay compensation. Bob's argument was completely unreasonable. The delay and resulting damage were clearly Bob's responsibility. Yet he was trying to shift the blame to us. Anyway, I need to go back to the company right away and form an investigation team. I need to consult with the CO too. What would that old geezer know? I hear he's famous or something, but he's about to retire, right? He must be hard of hearing and senile. It's useless to ask such a fossil. You fix it right now. I couldn't let Bob's words slide. For our company, Mr. Johnson is the most important person. All employees respect him, and none of us can surpass him yet. But Bob's way of speaking was clearly mocking Mr. Johnson. That was absolutely unforgivable. Take that back. What? Noticing my voice had lowered, Bob narrowed his eyes. Take back what you just said, mocking Mr. Johnson. He's not someone a useless employee who got in through connections like you can talk about freely. He's a genius who climbed to his position through talent and effort. Brilliant engineers from all over the world gather to work with him. When I finished my tirade, Bob looked dumbfounded for a moment, then his face quickly turned red. He grabbed my collar even tighter and shook me hard. What's your problem? Saying such disrespectful things. Who are you calling useless? What's wrong with getting in through connections? Being rich is obviously better than being poor. Bob was furious beyond control, but I didn't regret anything I'd said. I doubt there's an employee in our company who would stay silent when Mr. Johnson is mocked. If you apologize right now, I'll promise to repair the equipment. It will undoubtedly take several months, but that's better than not fixing it at all, right? Who are you to talk down to me? We're the main contractor. You're just a subcontractor. Subcontractors should just do what they're told. Fix it now. Stay overnight and work nonstop to fix it. Seeing that Bob had no intention of apologizing, I let out a small sigh. There's no point in talking to Bob any further. I understand what you're saying. I'll be taking my leave now. If you understand, then that's fine. Bring some workers to repair it and fix it as fast as possible. I ignored Bob's ranting and raving. While I generally don't have strong likes or dislikes towards people, I was certain that I deeply disliked Bob. In any case, I needed to consult with Mr. Johnson first. With that in mind, I returned to the company. After the argument with Bob, I visited the company again 3 months later. As soon as Bob saw me, he came over with a smile. Thanks for fixing it nonstop for 3 months. I'm going to wire you a penny for the repairs. With a grin on his face, that's what Bob said to me, and I was completely baffled, tilting my head. Huh? I didn't fix anything though? What? Bob tilted his head at my words, just as I had. What are you talking about? You've been working on it nonstop, right? Didn't you come to report that it's finally fixed? No, I really didn't do anything. Has Bob forgotten our conversation from 3 months ago? That I would promise to repair it if he apologized. He didn't apologize then. So there's no way we would have done any repairs. No way you've been doing nothing for 3 months. I'll tell the boss it's all fixed up. But still, it took too long to fix. I was almost sent to the disciplinary committee, you know? I honestly couldn't understand what Bob was saying with a laugh. I'm saying we didn't fix it because we really didn't do anything. Make sure to check the wire transfer for the repair costs. Still grinning, Bob said this to me and then went off somewhere. Everything Bob said was wrong, but I couldn't be bothered to correct him. I let out a small sigh and headed to the CO's office. The day after I went to Bob's company, I was working at my own office, but Bob kept calling nonstop since morning. I've got nothing special to talk about with him, so I've been having folks tell him I'm out, but my team seems pretty fed up with the phone ringing every 10 minutes. Bob sure is persistent, Tom said. Tom was one of the employees who seemed worn out. He's been answering the phone since morning, trying to keep me from having to take the calls, so he's been yelled at by Bob dozens of times by now. Maybe I should answer after all? No, it's okay. You're busy and have lots of other things to do. Bob's calls are about the equipment repairs, right? There's no need for you to take the calls when we know he's just going to complain. Tom's words were truly helpful. Actually, I have another long overseas business trip starting tomorrow, so I'm quite busy today. There's a mountain of work I need to finish in the US by today. Even after noon, the calls from Bob didn't stop at all. In other words, he hasn't left the phone or done any work since morning. What a wage thief, I thought, letting out a small sigh. The call stopped around 3 p.m., I reckon. The ringing that had been going all day suddenly stopped. I've got a bad feeling about this, Tom mumbled. I was just relieved that the phone finally stopped, but I didn't pay much mind to Tom's words at the time. Later on, though, Tom's bad feeling would turn out to be spot on. Bob showed up at our company. With a red face and in a rage, Bob came into the company and walked straight towards me. Tom quickly stepped between us, saying, "Jack has an overseas business trip starting tomorrow and is very busy. If you have something to discuss, I can listen." His tone was polite, but he said this while glaring at Bob. Bob shoved Tom aside, yelling, "Get out of the way, underling." I felt something snap inside me when I saw Tom stumble and fall. Not only insulting Mr. Johnson, but now hurting my important subordinate too. I felt anger welling up from the pit of my stomach. That's enough. How much more do you think you can get away with? Don't have anything to do with our company anymore. When I raised my voice like that, all the employees looked at me with surprised faces. Since joining this company, I had never yelled like this before. I'm not the type to get angry at people easily, but this time I felt like I was going to lose it. You've been calling all morning, and it's been a nuisance. My staff have been shielding me by not letting me take the calls. But what did you want? I'll listen to everything you have to say right here, right now. I'm the one who should be angry. After making us wait 3 months for repairs, you say you didn't do anything when we thought it was fixed? How ridiculous is that? Bob didn't show any sign of backing down even when I yelled at him, and he shouted back just as loudly. The surrounding employees were watching with bated breath, creating a strange atmosphere. That day, I said I'd promise to repair it if you apologized. You didn't apologize at all for mocking Mr. Johnson. At that moment, our business with your company was over. You're still going on about that. Who cares about your half-dead old geezer? Ugh, talking to you is pointless. Any employee here will do. Just fix our drilling equipment. Bob sighed with a defeated expression and addressed the surrounding employees. However, no employee answered Bob. What's wrong? Surely someone's free? Oh, are you worried about the repair costs? Fine, I'll pay a proper amount. Satisfied now? As Bob said this while stomping his feet in irritation, the employees looked at each other with troubled expressions. Then Tom spoke up. Even if you say someone who's free, that drilling equipment can't be fixed without Jack, you know? Huh? Bob frowned at Tom's words. It was probably not the answer he was expecting. What are you talking about? There's no way it can't be fixed without this guy, right? This department specializes in maintenance and inspection, so it'd be strange if everyone couldn't fix it. What Bob was saying wasn't wrong. This department is indeed in charge of maintenance and inspection, so everyone is an engineer. We can fix the onshore oil drilling equipment. The offshore drilling equipment is just so complex in structure that it's really difficult to fix. To begin with, the offshore equipment rarely breaks down. We do frequent inspections because it's hard to fix if it does break down. What? As Tom answered with a straight face, Bob's face finally showed signs of panic. If you really want the equipment fixed, you have no choice but to ask Jack. We can fix it together under Jack's instructions, but it's impossible for us to repair it on our own. The other employees nodded in agreement with Tom's words. What he was saying was true. To begin with, there had never been a case where the offshore drilling equipment had broken down this catastrophically. Even I would have to fumble around to figure out how to fix it. There's no way the other employees could fix it. That's ridiculous. Just fix it right now, any way you can. We can't start our work without that equipment. We're already 3 months behind. It's seriously bad. Well, if Jack says he doesn't want to fix it, that's impossible. Seeing Bob on the verge of tears, Tom looked like he could barely contain his laughter. Having dealt with Bob's calls all morning, Tom probably had some pent-up frustration. Why are you saying you don't want to fix it? Maintenance is your job, isn't it? Do something about it. I couldn't help but sigh as Bob approached me and yelled. I've explained the reason for not repairing it so many times. What was the cause of this breakdown after all? Huh? Bob's eyes widened for a moment at my question. His eyes darted around, clearly acting suspiciously. I don't know. Isn't it your job to find out the cause? 3 months ago, the week before I went to your company, when you said it was broken, you contacted us saying the equipment was broken, right? We fixed it easily that time, but we did a very thorough overall inspection to prevent this from happening again. I was certain it wouldn't break if used normally. But for it to break down again just a week later is unthinkable under normal circumstances. Moreover, we confirmed that there was no opportunity to use the equipment during that week. It's too strange for equipment that hasn't moved at all to break down, if you think about it normally. So, we installed surveillance cameras at the time of the previous breakdown, on both the control machine and the actual equipment. Guess what we captured? Sweat had been pouring down Bob's face as he listened to me speak. It was as good as a confession without him having to say anything. I don't know, Bob said, his voice trembling, which was so ridiculous I couldn't help but laugh. You don't know? Are you sure? The cameras clearly captured your face. You were drilling for oil without permission, weren't you? But your procedure was so messy it was hard to watch. No wonder it broke down if you used it like that. Bob tried to say something back to me, but he fell silent, perhaps realizing it was futile. Staying quiet when the situation turns against you, huh? What a pitiful guy. The other day, the CO personally asked me to repair the equipment, so I investigated thoroughly. To put it simply, it could be repaired. However, since this breakdown was intentionally caused by you, Bob, it's not covered by our warranty. I went to your company yesterday to inform you of this. Not covered by warranty, but it can be fixed, right? Please fix it. Bob's pleading eyes were annoying. From my perspective, fixing that equipment would be like cleaning up after Bob's mistake. Why should I have to do anything for someone who mocked Mr. Johnson? Not covered by warranty means the repair will cost money. That equipment itself is a patented machine worth $198 million, so the repair will also cost an enormous amount. You can expect it to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Also, since there's no guarantee it can be fixed, I suggested purchasing new equipment to the CO. New equipment? There's no way we can pay $198 million, right? It's certainly not an amount you can casually suggest replacing just because it broke. $198 million is an amount that would involve government-level decisions. It's out of the question to replace it because a regular employee tampered with it and broke it. Yes, that's why he said he'd bill you for it. What? It seemed to take Bob a moment to understand what I meant. It's understandable, given that in that instant, a $198 million bill had fallen on him. Even your company's CEO was hesitant about the $198 million amount. He said, "Since this whole incident is your responsibility, Bob, you'd have to pay the full amount. That's obviously impossible. Can't you just fix it and be done with it? Do something. Or call your old geezer of a CEO. He's the CEO, so he should be able to fix it." Unfortunately, it's beyond my capabilities too. The one who suddenly joined the conversation was Mr. Johnson, who had come to the office without us noticing. He must have heard the commotion and come to see what was happening. Bob's eyes widened at Mr. Johnson's sudden appearance. "You must be the Bob I've been hearing about. I've heard quite a bit about you," Mr. Johnson addressed Bob in a calm voice. His expression didn't reveal what he was thinking. "So you're the CEO. Our drilling equipment is broken. Fix it right now." Yes, I heard. "Unfortunately, I can't fix it either." "What?" Bob was dumbfounded by these words. He probably never dreamed that even Mr. Johnson couldn't fix it. Why not? That equipment was designed and built by Jack here. I contributed some knowledge, and it's considered a joint development, but in reality, it's almost entirely Jack's achievement. Mr. Johnson said this with a smile, while Bob blinked and mumbled, "That can't be true. It's not a lie." Jack originally designed equipment for a famous overseas company. The first time I met him was at a world-class physics conference. He gave an excellent presentation there. I was surprised to learn he had applied to our company as a new graduate. At that time, we weren't hiring any new employees due to poor business performance. It was a case of the one that got away. It wasn't really getting away at all. After failing the interview, I had decided to join a major Saudi Arabian company. But if Mr. Johnson had contacted me after that, I would have quit the Saudi Arabian company without hesitation. The development of our offshore oil drilling equipment would have been impossible without Jack. I definitely couldn't have done it alone. That's how complex and difficult that equipment is. It's not something you can just repair immediately because it's broken. Mr. Johnson's words became a bit harsher. It felt like he was reproaching Bob. But without that equipment, we can't do our work. And buying a new one is impossible. Well, repairing it is just as impossible. Jack is leaving for a long-term overseas business trip tomorrow. He has an important conference coming up, and he has appointments with overseas clients scheduled down to the minute every day. We can't lend our valuable ace to indulge your selfishness. But, even so, Bob looked around, hoping someone would help him. But of course, there was no one in our company who would extend a helping hand to someone like him. "If you're done, please leave quickly. As I said before, I'm busy. It's a waste of time talking to you." I spat out those words and returned to my work. The other employees also ignored Bob's presence and started working. For a while, Bob tried crying and shouting, desperately trying to garner sympathy from those around him, but perhaps realizing that no one would help him, he quietly left the company. After that, Bob was fired from his company, of course, and as warned, he was billed $198 million. I had heard he got in through connections, so I thought the amount might be reduced, but when I heard it would be billed in full, I couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps it's a case of, when the money runs out, so does the relationship. Apparently, Bob was cut off by all his relatives because of this incident. The $198 million for the new equipment will be billed as compensation. In other words, even declaring bankruptcy won't erase this debt. All of Bob's assets have been frozen, and his accounts are being managed with everything going towards the payment. But of course, this amount is impossible to pay off, even over a lifetime. Since the compensation will be inherited, Bob's wife immediately filed for divorce. Furthermore, his children apparently cut ties with their parents by renouncing their inheritance. He has literally become a complete outcast. He's been spotted getting discarded food from convenience stores every day. He looks like a homeless person, and some employees have seen him sleeping in parks. Bob will probably never be able to escape this life. As for me, I've returned to America after finishing my long overseas business trip and am back to my busy days. Actually, the other day, Mr. Johnson officially nominated me as the next CEO. There had been talks about this for a while, and I myself thought I would be next when Mr. Johnson retired. Recently, I had this conversation with Mr. Johnson. It gives me chills to think what would have happened if I hadn't met you at that conference, Jack. I dreamed of making offshore drilling equipment, but without you, that dream definitely wouldn't have come true. You're exaggerating. Brilliant employees from all over the world gather under you, Mr. Johnson. There might have been an engineer like me among them. From my perspective, I was lucky to meet you before those brilliant employees did. That's not true. Mr. Johnson interrupted me with a serious face. All the employees who've joined in the past few years say they applied because they wanted to work with you, Jack. Even Tom was like that. I had to listen to him go on and on about wanting to work with you in his final interview. Really? I thought for sure he was talking about you. Mr. Johnson shook his head with a laugh at my response. You're already the face of this company, not me. Engineers from all over the world join our company because they admire you. Jack, you're the best engineer I've ever met. You're my pride. Mr. Johnson looked straight at me and declared this. Receiving these words, I felt their weight. I want to continue being someone Mr. Johnson can be proud of. To that end, I want to continue being the best engineer, second to none. It was the moment my lifelong goal was set.